Good afternoon. Lower this. How are you all today? It's so good to see you. I'm back in the swamp, but I'm back with all of you. I appreciate you all having me here. It's always such a pleasure to be here every single year, and I really enjoy it. I always enjoy talking with like-minded people. I think it's just that fellowship helps to recharge you, makes you feel a little bit better, so that when you go back home, you go out into the week, you just have that little bit of extra strength that you've gotten from everyone else. So that's why this is so great. And thank you for the nice introduction as well. I'm with NRA TV now, and I advocate for NRA issues as a law-abiding gun owner, which, thank you. As well as doing their spokesmanship and spokesmanning, do all of that. But I'm a Christian, and I'm a wife, and I'm a mom, and I'm a gun owner, and I'm a radio host, and a TV host, and a TV commentator, and a dog owner. And if you believe my detractors, I'm also a terrorist. What else? I made a list. A prostitute, a terrorist, murderer, all kinds of stuff. Because, women should be listened to. Right? Isn't that how that works? Only some women. That's the thing. So I have a couple of things that I wanted to talk with you all about, and we've had some developing news as well with the Kavanaugh story. The days of our Supreme Court, I think, is how we should aptly call it. So, as a Christian conservative woman, I am utterly fascinated by the way that women in particular are treated by pop culture and society, but not in the way that you think. Because I feel as though the left tells women two things simultaneously, right? The first thing that they tell us is that we're weak, we are too dumb, and lack the necessary motor skills to legally carry a firearm and defend ourselves because we're going to be overpowered and murdered instantly. We're told that, and we'll never be able to master those skills. That's one of the things that we're told. In addition to that, we're also told that we're not smart enough to figure out how to pay for our own birth control, and we're not strong enough to raise a child. Over and over, we're told these things, while also we're simultaneously told that we're empowered and yay, girl power and all of this stuff. And that makes zero sense to me because I feel as though progressives and the leftists, our brethren on the other side of the aisle, and they're still our brethren, God love them, but I feel as though they tell us that we're only strong in the things that they want us to be strong in. We're only powerful in the things that they want us to be powerful in. When it comes to actually empowering ourselves, those things are viewed and spun as a sign of weakness. The issue of birth control and the issue of, right to life and, all of this stuff. I feel like, though, there are some female political beliefs that are more equal than others. And that's what it feels like as a woman. This was, by the way, I have a secret, well, it's not really a secret. When I had my midlife crisis when I was 20, I used to be a dirty, rotten Democrat. Oh, I know. In my defense, I did not meet a single conservative until I was in college. My family was left. All my teachers were lefties. I was only ever exposed to that viewpoint. I lived in a lefty bubble. And then the more educated I became, and the more questions I began to ask, and the more experiences I began to have, I thought none of this stuff actually jives with what I really feel. And then I realized at the height of the whole, this was during the Jennifer Flowers, and I did not have sexual relations, the non-accusatory knuckle point from former President Clinton. At the height of all of that, I realized, I feel like this is a sham. I feel like the progressive ideology and their claims to care for women, it's nothing more than a sham. And that's one of the big reasons why I left the left. Their disingenuousness on this issue. Now, speaking of confusing narratives, I want to touch on this phrase, this whole believe all women thing, and then I'm going to get to the meat and taters, okay? I can't say asterisk after women, but women have, that phrase, believe all women has an asterisk on it. It's not believe all women, it's believe some women when they say things that we like and when they only accuse people we dislike. It's not actually believe all women, that's a lie. We only believe progressive women who don't accuse progressive party members. Don't believe me? Why is Christine Ford a household name and not Karen Monahan? I would love for the media to answer that question. Believe all women unless they're accusing Keith Ellison of assault, unless they're accusing Cory Booker of groping them, unless they're accusing Bill Clinton of rape, or unless they're accusing a Kennedy of killing a woman. Don't believe those women. Believe some women, but not them. That's the big thing, too. And where it concerns Karen Monahan and Keith Ellison, which I really do believe that these questions should be asked, because isn't that the rule? Isn't that how this goes? I still believe in due process. I still believe that in our great republic, you are innocent until you are proven guilty. And that even goes for Keith Ellison. I'm not situational about it either. That's how our system of law works. An accusation it doesn't mean proof. That's not what an accusation is. It's not proof. It's not a self-proving thing. And I made some notes, and we're going to see if we can stick to them. I do talk radio for a living, so it's like 3 hours every day. I look at it like this, because we just got the headline that Christine Ford did agree to testify before the Senate Judiciary Committee this week. And her attorney suggested a phone call with Senator Grassley and others to further negotiate the details of this. Now, this is how I look at this whole situation. I don't know Brett Kavanaugh personally. I don't know that many of us here in this room actually do. But what I do know and what I do trust is our system of law and order. And I think that in this system, this republic for which men and women have fought and died, in which many of our family members have shed blood, I think that phrase, guilty until proven innocent, means something. There's a reason why the accused have a right to face their accuser. Now, I don't know, and I don't think that any of us, and maybe this is an unpopular thing to say, but nobody knows what truly happened. All I know is this, is that in our system, when someone is found guilty, they should pay for their crimes. That's what law-abiding, God-fearing people believe. But sometimes accusers can be wrong. In 2014, Colin Kaepernick was falsely accused of rape. I don't think that I need to remind anybody of Brian Banks, Atlanta Falcons. He was imprisoned on a false accusation of rape. And I ask, where was the left then? Everyone talks about Kaepernick now, but where were they in 2014? Or are we still only believe in all women? See, that's the thing, it's exclusionary. Sometimes they're wrong, sometimes in the instance of the university, UVA, the story with Rolling Stone, or a number of other instances, sometimes they're false accusations. Not all of them are, and I'm not saying that this proves or disproves anything with the Kavanaugh case. This is why we have due process, though. And yes, the accused has a right to face their accuser. Justice isn't comfortable. Justice isn't always easy, but it is important. And if we love our country the way that we claim to, it is important that we adhere to this system and that we follow the rule of law and order, and we make sure that due process is upheld. There are two things that are simultaneously going on in this situation. You have the accusation from Christine Ford, and then you have the way it was handled. And I have to remark on how the way that this was handled. Dianne Feinstein sat on this since July for 6 weeks. She didn't encourage the accused to file a police report, didn't apparently put any protections in place for the accused, still hasn't shown the redacted letter in full to the Senate Judiciary Committee majority members. So we're just going on what has been leaked to the press, apparently by her office, and from her, and from the redacted portions that Senate Judiciary members have been allowed to read. Explain to me how that is kinder to the accuser. Explain to me how throwing the accuser in the lion's den of public opinion is safer, is more just, and is empowering women than allowing the court system, where it is rightful to be litigated, handle this process. Why hasn't that been done? If Dianne Feinstein believes all women, why was it Chuck Grassley, one of the, as Joy Behar put it, old white men who acted within 24 hours to reach out to the victim, accommodate them, and put protections in place? I'll say this. The terrifying attempt by the left to usurp due process and in its place fix a system worthy of Salem, a system that presupposes guilt and determines that a person be as guilty as the rage mob is angry, is un-American. And it should compel you to get to the polls this fall. If the negotiations can't be finalized and if testimony can't be had, hold the vote. Because it's been more than fair. It has been more than fair. And for the Senate Judiciary Committee members and the Republicans there, they need to defend their proceedings. This worries me in more than one way, and more than just due process being eroded. This worries me as a mother of sons, because I sit back and I watch what is happening to our culture, a system where boys are growing up believing that they have some sort of inherent sin within just by being male, that they're somehow, that they're toxic, that masculinity is toxic. I've heard this phrase, toxic masculinity, over and over again. I have not yet, however, heard the phrase toxic feminism, which is what I think third-wave feminism is. For these third-wave feminist social justice warriors, we have replaced the patriarchy with the matriarchy. And again, I'm raising boys into healthy young men. And I feel as though this is a culture that is against that. The blame that is shifted on men, the war on men, you don't have to demonize men to empower women. And balancing the scales of justice doesn't mean persecuting innocent people. And that's just the thing. You don't reconcile past actions of sexism by engaging in it yourself. I can't tell you how many times I've seen people on social media or even on television who say, well, Kavanaugh's guilty, just because we need to start believing women. We've believed men long enough. Tell me how that's justice. How does that balance the scales? It doesn't. And by the way, again, I want to just touch on the handling one more time. Because I know that I'm preaching to the choir for the most part, but why hasn't file a police report? As a woman and as a mother of sons, I would love to see. I want a conclusion to this, whether it's justice or whether we find out what's going on. That's what I want to see. But if you have to have both parties cooperate, And I'm telling you right now, I hear people say, oh, well, this individual's taken a polygraph. That's great, but they're so unreliable, they're inadmissible in court. And meanwhile, Kavanaugh has testified, well, I mean, he's with a transcripted interview that he gave under oath, under penalty of felony just this past Monday. That's legally stronger than a polygraph, which is inadmissible. So these are all things that we have to take into consideration. I go where the truth is, and right now there is not enough to support what I have been seeing people say. There simply is not. And it's not wrong to say that. And we're living in a society that is shaming us for wanting to follow the rule of law and shaming us for saying, whoa, 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 hold up for a second. We need to have due process. The FBI can't investigate because that's A, not in their jurisdiction, B, they're barred from doing so because it's not in their jurisdiction, C, the only reason they got involved with Clarence Thomas and Anita Hill was because they were federal employees. Kavanaugh at 17 years old was not. This is a state matter that local police would need to investigate. Start there. This is where Feinstein could have stepped in and they could have had this whole process rolling instead of sitting on it and throwing this person to the lion's den in the 11th hour. And I think that that needs to be atoned for. That's inexcusable to me. You know, you don't raise healthy boys, healthy men, by blasting them for not taking responsibility while you say nothing when Planned Parenthood lets them off the hook. That's not how you raise healthy men or healthy women. You don't raise healthy young women or healthy young men by teaching them that boys are somehow wretched creatures and that every accusation must be believed outright. And that's not how that works. With the situation with Ford and Kavanaugh, everyone says, well, this is being rushed. I don't know how you can sit on something since July and say that it's being rushed. But can we just for a moment see this from the other perspective? Can we just stop for a moment and look at the perspective of a guy who his wife and his daughters are going through the ringer as well? They're getting death threats. It's horrible. Can we just look for a minute as to how it's fair? We talk about fairness for Ford. What about fairness for Kavanaugh, who's simply waiting for his chance to respond and is doing everything in his power to do so? You don't raise strong kids by teaching girls that strength is defined by self-victimization or by suppressing speech, stop it, Twitter, or by disarming law-abiding college kids and ripping away Second Amendment rights for those between 18 and 21 without any sort of, again, due process. When you strip someone of their natural rights, there better be a darn good reason for it, because the only person who can forfeit a natural right is the person to whom that right is endowed, and that is you. It is an inalienable right, something that the government cannot encroach on, and we are seeing massive constitutional abuse on a wide scale because of that disarmament. But this is what you do. You raise healthy young men and women by instilling in them a healthy fear of God and a respect for themselves and their fellow man. I'm going to end with this. It was Benjamin Franklin who said that only a virtuous people are capable of freedom. George Washington said that virtue is the necessary spring of government. Politicians and our culture is a reflection of ourselves. From the populace comes those who represent the populace, which is why virtue is so unbelievably important. It is why honor and ethics and morality and character are so unbelievably important. And outcomes as well. So this fall, we need to figure out what we want to see. What do we want to see looking back at us, politically speaking, culturally speaking? This is the decision that we have before us this November, and I know we're going to make the right one. God bless you all. God bless America. Thank you.